Member for Kalamunda.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and may I once again congratulate you on your ascension to the role. May I preemptively request an extension of time, Deputy Speaker?
You can.
I rise today to deliver my inaugural speech in this Parliament, in the unusual position of having already spoken here many times before. I'm reliably informed that this might even be a record for the WA Parliament, though I sincerely hope it won't be my only achievement in this place. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the members for Kalamunda before me: Matthew Hughes, the Honourable John Day and the late Honourable Ian Thompson AM for their service to the Perth Hills. It is grounding, it is humbling, and it is exciting to stand in this place and represent the place I call home, the place I was raised, the place my family has lived for 7 generations, and now the place where I raise my own children. I represent the school where I learnt to read, the streets where I delivered papers as a kid, and the property my ancestors settled when they first came to Western Australia. I represent the pharmacy where I cared for my first patient, the hospital where my granny died and my brother was born. I represent the bush tracks where I skinned my knees, got lost in my own world and learnt the freedom of the forest, tracks that shaped my childhood and still call me back today. I represent the homes and small businesses of my family and friends, places filled with laughter, hard work and the kind of neighbourly care that defines our Perth Hills community. I represent the Perth Hills, a winding and beautiful electorate that travels across the Darling Range from metropolitan Perth's only ghost town, Canning Mills, through Kalamunda and Mundaring and all the way out to the town of Wooroloo. It is places like Lake Leschenaultia, the beautiful wineries of the Bickley Valley, the Lesmurdie Falls, the Bibulum Tracks Northern Terminus, and the amazing Kookaburra Cinema. Representation is not just a word. For me, it is a profound responsibility. It means standing in this place, not for myself, but for others, for their hopes, their struggles, their futures. That responsibility is not abstract to me, it is personal. It is the most important calling of my life to deliver on that duty for a community that has shaped who I am, a community that is entwined with my family's story across generations. To represent the people of the Perth Hills is not just an honour, it is also a significant responsibility. And I don't see myself as the owner of this role, but as its steward. My responsibility is to serve with purpose, to act with integrity, and to leave both this position and the Perth Hills in a better place than when I began. Because the Perth Hills aren't just a patch on a map, they're a way of life. The Kalamunda electorate, or rather the Perth Hills electorate, as most locals prefer to call it, sits within the last remnant bushland of an ancient and precious ecosystem. People are drawn to the Perth Hills for a unique lifestyle, one that is deeply connected to the bush and the sense of community that comes with that connection. The towns and suburbs that stretch across the range trace the old timber mill railway lines, once used to cart timber down to Perth and to Fremantle. These tracks, like the people who built them, are a part of a rich history of resilience and of hard work. I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and those pioneering families who established these communities. The name Kalamunda comes from 2 Noongar words: Kala, meaning home, settlement or district, and Munda, meaning forest. Kalamunda, home in the forest. It's a name that speaks to the spirit of this place. And of course, anyone who's lived in the Perth Hills knows that if I mention Kalamunda, I'd better mention Mundaring too. Said to mean a high place on a high place in the Noongar language, Mundaring has long been a proud equal, and perhaps in this naming is where the friendly rivalry between these 2 beloved Hills communities first began. As I move through the electorate, I see constant reminders of our history of resilience and of innovation, from the old timber railway lines to the orchards carved from forest. The Mundaring Weir remains a powerful symbol of this legacy. A bold project that transformed our state by bringing water to the goldfields and unlocking growth across Western Australia. Today, that same spirit lives on. Our communities face bushfires, storms and challenges with the same grit, rallying through local businesses, volunteers and neighbours helping neighbours. The hills have some of the highest volunteer rates in the state, and that says everything about who we are, a community that shows up when it matters most. But it isn't a community without its challenges. The flawed North Stoneville development remains a major issue. In its current form, it would destroy over 100,000 trees and vital habitat, risking lives, our way of life, and an environmental cost we simply cannot afford. A more thoughtful proposal may have well-earned community support, but this one does not. We're also facing a serious shortfall in aged care, a threat to our intergenerational community. Too many of our elderly are being forced to leave the hills to find a home, even after a lifetime of contribution to our Perth Hills community. We're short by at least 500 aged care beds, and it is unacceptable that our community is being fractured by this failure to plan. Emergency services are under pressure. The Pickering Brook Fire Station is long overdue, and ambulance ramping continues. And invasive species are damaging our forests. Wild pigs are tearing up native habitat, and cats and foxes are decimating native fauna. Even in sport, we're falling behind, with 50 children's basketball teams being turned away every year due to a lack of space. And many change rooms, especially for our growing women's teams, are outdated and inadequate. These aren't abstract issues, they're daily realities, and they demand more than words, they demand action. That's what representation means to me. It means showing up, standing up, and getting things done. My responsibility is to the people who put their trust in me, and that means speaking up when it counts. I was sent here to fight for the community I call home, and that's exactly what I intend to do. But in my community, many have described me as a reluctant politician, and I take that as a bit of a compliment. I'm not here for the spotlight, I'm here because I care. So let me tell you a little bit about where I come from and how on earth I ended up here. The Horts arrived in Victoria in 1853 and eventually saw the light and moved to Darlington in 1899. They established themselves as orchardists and road workers, and over time they spread across the Perth Hills and far beyond. My parents, Don and Teresa, met in Carmel and built their first home on the Lesmurdie Brook, a place where I spent most of my childhood and where my own children and their cousins still splash and play in the creek today. Mum came from a small town called Cooleycup, where my grandparents ran a sheep farm that remains in the family to this day. My granddad, Arthur Corker, worked that land by hand with his father and his brother. He grew up in poverty, but through hard work and resilience, the family not only survived, but eventually thrived in that beautiful corner of Western Australia. Though Grandad rarely spoke of the hardship, he never missed a chance to speak of the love he had for his wife, my Nana Joy, whose family had immigrated from the UK after World War II. Family was always central to my life. Much of my childhood was spent visiting relatives and returning to the farm. I remember one morning back in primary school, trying, no doubt, to sound wiser than my years, I confidently proclaimed to my granddad that the Greens policies were surely the sensible way forward. Well, what followed was a gentle but uncompromising lesson in the difference between ideology and pragmatism. As we tended to fly-blown sheep and talked through the harsh realities of mulesing and pest control, I began to understand what it meant to live by necessity, not by theory. For my granddad, a lifelong farmer, ideology was a luxury. It was pragmatism that kept the animals healthy, the family fed, and the land alive. As for me, when it came time to choose a career, I knew three things. I wasn't cut out to be a farmer, I wanted to help people, and I was strangely good at chemistry. So I became a pharmacist, despite not really knowing what a pharmacist did. I just knew they helped people. During my training, I worked at Nightingale's Pharmacy in Kalamunda, where I enjoyed putting my university learning into practice by helping people directly. By the time I graduated, I was drawn to our hospital system and was fortunate to be accepted into the training program at Royal Perth Hospital, where I eventually specialised in cardiovascular medicine. That led to a role supporting the transfer of clinical services to Fiona Stanley Hospital, where I further specialised in treating patients with advanced heart failure and cardiac transplants as a part of the state service. Across both institutions, I worked in emergency departments, specialist units, clinical teams, and just about every ward in between. As a pharmacist in the emergency department, I'll never forget the loss, the fear, the exhaustion, and the relief. I'll never forget the staggering realisation of what people can do to each other, both good and bad. As a heart transplant pharmacist, I'll never forget the hope, the anguish, the excitement and the privilege of service. I'll never forget the father who got a second chance to see his children grow up, made possible only by the heartbreaking loss of another family's loved one. And I'll never forget the teams of multidisciplinary staff who worked tirelessly, often within an incredibly fractured system, to do what was right, to make a difference. It was an absolute privilege to serve in our hospitals, and my next challenge took me into a slightly different space as Chief Pharmacist for the WA Country Health Service. I took the role with some reluctance, stepping away from directly caring for patients. It felt incredibly foreign to me. But within months, I saw just how much of a difference I could make. With the support of the board and executive, we launched a major medication reform project to improve access to proper care right across country WA. It was an extraordinary responsibility and a formative one. WACS covers more than 2.5 million square kilometres, and during COVID-19, that size wasn't just a logistical challenge, it was a test of ingenuity and resilience. We had to redesign supply chains overnight, protect vulnerable communities without nearby hospitals, and ensure life-saving medication reached some of the most remote places in the country, possibly in the world. I spent nearly 16 years inside our hospital system, from major tertiary centres like Royal Perth and Fiona Stanley to smaller hospitals like Kalamunda and Swan Districts. I worked alongside clinicians under immense pressure, navigating limited formularies, training young doctors, supporting families through complex care situations, and helping shape care in areas like heart and lung transplantation. These weren't abstract tasks. They were real decisions that impacted real lives. And they showed me the human cost when a system is stretched too thin. And they showed me the frank inequity in our system that exists when our health department isn't held to account. It was in the last 8 years of this time that I saw firsthand how often the voices of health workers were ignored and how too many decisions were made by people far removed from the front line. While working in the hospital system, a second path began to take shape. Chanel and I moved to Thornley to save for a future in the hills. But when that dream felt out of reach, we threw ourselves into the local community. Encouraged by locals and after a helpful chat with the then Deputy Mayor, Teresa Lyons, I ran for council. The community backed me and I served 5 years as a councillor and as Deputy Mayor. We kept rates low while delivering record investment in safety, upgraded parks and playgrounds, and began rehabilitating the Canning and Southern Rivers. We also led cat management reform, establishing the city's first dedicated facility. Local government isn't glamorous, but it's where trust is built and every decision counts. Those years, along with my time in health and in community service, shaped how I approached this role, with sleeves rolled up, focus on responsibility, and ready to get things done. I've never been interested in politics for politics' sake, but over time I saw decisions made that hurt the people around me. Small businesses drowning in red tape, farming families gutted by the live export ban, and community projects derailed by unclear legislation. As Deputy Mayor, I watched community groups and orchardists scramble to interpret the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act, only to see months of planning and thousands of plants risked when a major river planting day was abruptly cancelled. I saw frontline health roles cut, local infrastructure neglected, and the emergency services levy rise while investment lagged. I'd seen enough. The Hills had taught me this. When things aren't right, we don't sit back. We step up, we get it done, and that's why I ran, to be a part of the solution. To be frank, my support for the Liberal Party wasn't always a foregone conclusion. There was even a moment where it looked like I might be leaning a little more progressively. My dad, ever the pragmatist, didn't say much, but not long after I found myself in possession of an online subscription to The Australian. And The Weekend Australian found its way into the car when we dropped by for dinner. I assume it was less about expanding my reading list and more about course correction. Very subtle, Dad. Like many Australians, I spent time figuring out what I believe. But the more I worked in healthcare, the more I engaged with community, and the more I saw how decisions affected real lives, the clearer it became. The values that guided me: personal responsibility, freedom of choice, reward for effort, and practical compassion were Liberal values. I grew up in a family that lived those values. I spent 2 decades in a health system where nearly 2 decades I should say, where compassion, competence and accountability were the difference between good care and avoidable harm. That's why I believe in the Liberal Party, not because of tradition, but because of conviction. I believe government should empower people, not control them, that it should reward hard work, remove barriers and deliver focused, accountable services. My time in health deepened that belief. I saw what happens when government grows too big and forgets the people on the ground. I saw how disempowered communities react when they're treated like problems, not partners. And I saw how good policy can really change lives. I know our party is facing challenges. Trust has definitely been lost, but my own journey shows that it can be rebuilt. I didn't grow up inside the Liberal Party. I came to it through experience. And just as my beliefs evolved, I believe we can earn back the trust of Western Australians by listening, by learning, and showing that we're ready to lead. That's the kind of liberalism I believe in, one grounded in service, responsibility, and solutions. And it's this approach I bring into this parliament, not just as a Liberal, but as someone who's questioned it, tested it, and ultimately come home to it. I wouldn't be standing here today without the people of the Perth Hills and many others. When you win by 82 votes, every person who chipped in can say with confidence, I helped make that happen. Around 100 people wore Adam Hort shirts, delivered flyers and joined the campaign. Most of them have never volunteered in a political campaign before, and many of them are here today. And the vast majority weren't even members of a political party. But what they saw was an opportunity, a chance to elect someone who would stand up and fight for the area. The gravity of that is not lost on me. It means the world, and I truly believe it's why we won. We were a community fighting for a community. That's the essence of what makes the Hills so special. To those amazing people, thank you. The 2025 state election was the first time a candidate was pre-selected by the entirety of the grassroots Liberal Party membership of the Perth Hills, and I'm eternally grateful for their support, not only as volunteers but also for entrusting me with the responsibility of running as their candidate. Thank you to all the candidates who put their lives on hold to contest this election, and congratulations to all my colleagues in this place. I know your contributions will be immense. And to our Leader of the Opposition, Basil Zemplis, congratulations on your appointment, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. To my incredible wife, Chanel, life would have been a lot simpler if the trolley boy you met in Maddington never finished his pharmacy degree. I wouldn't be here without you. To my wonderful children who've never listened to Dad for this long, thank you. Thank you for the excited hugs when I get home, for helping deliver Christmas cards with elf hats photoshopped onto your heads, and for being the best part of my day. I'm sorry for what having a parliamentary dad might involve, but I hope one day you'll understand why I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Everything I do here, I do it for you. To my parents, Donald and Teresa, thank you for teaching me the value of hard work, the importance of family, and for whatever genetic mix gave me the ability to grow a beard and speak in public. To my parents-in-law, Wayne and Chris, thank you for your support and for all you do for our family. Thank you to the complex matrix of people who help with school pickups, drop-offs and the after-school chaos. Many of you are here today, and while it may seem like a small thing, we couldn't do it without you. To the Kalamunda campaign team, in particular campaign managers Sebastian Rosati and Daniel Newman, I won't list you all, but you know who you are, and most of you are here tonight. Thank you for your tireless work and for teaching me about this whole politics thing. A huge thank you to my East Metropolitan colleagues, the Honourable Donna Farragher, who we just heard her valedictory speech, Phil Twiss and Anthony Spagnolo, and to all the candidates who I had the pleasure of working alongside. Thank you to the Honourable Ken and Anna Wyatt. Your friendship and mentorship has meant the world to me. Thank you. To my colleagues at Royal Perth, Fiona Stanley, and the more than 100 WA Country Health Service sites I had the privilege of working with, thank you. I learnt so much from you all, and I truly hope I left each place better than I found it. To the long list of people on both sides of politics who took the time to convince me to pursue this amazing opportunity, thank you. I didn't win the seat of Kalamunda in a landslide. I won it by 82 votes. That number isn't lost on me. In fact, it drives me. It's a reminder that trust isn't given, it's earned. And in many parts of the Perth Hills, that trust is still being built. My goal in this place is simple: to be a strong, honest and effective voice for the Perth Hills, to bring our local challenges to the floor of this Parliament and to fight for services, for infrastructure and for the respect our community deserves. From aged care to bushfire preparedness, from local sporting facilities to environmental protection, from a Perth Hills planning policy to improving access to our natural forests and waterways. These aren't political talking points, they're the daily realities of the people I represent, and they'll be the focus of my work every day in this place. But more than anything, I want to rebuild trust, not just in me or the Liberal Party, but in politics itself. Because when people lose faith in the system, I think we all lose something. And I believe that starts with showing up, listening more than we speak, and doing what we say we'll do. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I know how to work hard, I know how to listen, and I know how to fight for the people who sent me here. When something needs doing, you roll up your sleeves and you get on with it. That's what I learnt from my family, from my community, and from the people of the Perth Hills. And it's why I stepped into my role with the WA Country Health Service. It's why I put up my hand for local council. And it's why I stand here now, because our community deserves a voice that fights for it. And that's exactly what I intend to do, with every lever available to me in this place and the values of the Liberal Party to guide me. So Winston Churchill said, "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, and an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." I'm forever the optimist. And to the people of the Perth Hills, thank you for entrusting a dad from Lesmurdy with this enormous responsibility. I won't let you down. I promise to be a steward, not just a politician, to step forward when others step back, and to serve with humility, passion and purpose, just as this community has supported my family for generations.
to the exit, Frankie. Very close to the exit,
Yeah, like 5 minutes. Thank you, Terry.
but they've been good. No, they haven't. Everyone's had their own little
When you're ready, you racing as it comes up, you wind up. Okay, just after 6, unless he's in the middle of a story where he won't keep going. Yeah.